This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Hello, welcome to Midco Sports Magazine. Well, there are lots of levels of competition from Pee-wees to the pros, but there is one global get-together that is held in higher esteem than all the others, and that is the Olympic Games. And this is an Olympic year, and we've got 3 stories this month on athletes in the Dakotas with Olympic aspirations. We have a high school swimmer from Mitchell, South Dakota, pooling her talents toward the Olympics since she was 9 years old. We have a former high school football star from Sioux Falls making an Olympic run in rugby. But first, kind of an odd question. What if you knew that you weren't going to win a race? Would you still train for 3 years to get ready for it? For Heidi Greenwood, the answer was easy. Here is Marty Mueller with her story.
You don't feel comfortable and you're out there by yourself with a wind blowing in your face, sleet, or whatever the elements may be, it can definitely be very challenging.
They say a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. For Heidi Greenwood, it's safe to say those 1,000 miles were eclipsed a long time ago.
Typically, it's from 85 to 95 miles a week. That seems to be a good spot for me. Again, this is very individualized, but that's what I have been doing, and I've been pretty consistent at that through the last 3 years about doing that volume of work.
The quick math on that, just under 4,600 miles per year. Not bad for a former collegiate volleyball player.
My main love was always volleyball, and that's always something that I was always like the forefront of my passion in with relation to sports.
While volleyball was the focus, her college years at UND weren't without success on the track. Heidi piled up All-American honors and even won an NCAA championship in her senior year. Around that time, her passion for running took root.
I really fell in love with running, I think, maybe my junior year of college. Just this simple act of running, not saying I just going out there and seeing who I can beat or run faster than people. It's really just a self thing that I find very rewarding.
That mental reward would become ever important when Heidi made the transition from middle distance track runner to competitive marathoner. 26.2 miles with nothing but your own thoughts, that's enough to drive some people mad.
So it's a lot of you time, what's going on inside your head. All those thoughts, you can either use them to help you or they can be paralyzing, So I think that's definitely what makes the marathon very unique.
After a few positive marathon experiences, Heidi laid down a speedy personal best in 2012. That time allowed a new goal to form. One only about 250 American women achieve every few years.
After I ran that 2:47 at the time, I knew it was possible to qualify for the trials if I really dedicated myself towards it. Obviously, I thought that goal was scary because running 6:10 pace for 26.2 miles, it's pretty intense.
Even with the goal being scary, she chose to ramp up her training. So when that same Columbus, Ohio marathon came around the following year, her body and mind were ready. In the 2013 race, Heidi would shave 5 minutes off her previous time, not only setting a new personal best, but achieving her goal of qualifying for the 2016 Summer Olympic Trials.
My goal has always been to qualify for the trials. I'm realistic. I know going into the trials, realistically, I'm not going to be qualifying for the Olympics. I'm totally at peace with that, and so this is just kind of really cool just to celebrate the journey of the last 3 years and kind of seeing how fast can you run?
We're on pace to have the hottest marathon Olympic trial ever. The high today before the day is over is going to be in the mid-80s.
It's definitely not what I had envisioned, if we would have reversed it 3 years ago, where I would have thought I would have been or wanted to be, and we evolve as people and what we want changes, and if you don't want something, it's really hard to fake that.
Can a single race define you? After 3 years of training, Heidi would see her dream end before crossing the finish line. In fact, she would only complete 9 miles that day in Los Angeles.
I did think too, after it was over, and I was like, Heidi, why did you do that? Like, why don't you could have just took a break for a couple minutes and then just kept on going. But I'd never been in a race where you actually stopped and that just seemed appalling. But women did that, people did that. The conditions were so tough. It was running survival. People weren't racing the race. They were just literally trying to keep going. And so, maybe I should have done that. But at that time, my frame of mind was, no thanks.
Even though her race ended early, her journey has not. She now has time to focus on her career, sharing her experiences with other athletes, and starting a family. So does one race define you? No.
I don't regret anything. I feel if I wouldn't have tried to pursue these things or put myself out there like that, I feel I would have always wondered, what if? Oh, I should have done that. I should have gone to altitude and tried that. Well, guess what? I did try that. Maybe I should have quit my job and focused on this. Well, guess what? I did that. So I'm not gonna have reservations about fully pursuing something. I think you can't be scared to put yourself out there and put yourself in position to chase down something you've always wanted to do, whether it, be start your own business or whatever it is, to not fear failure and just to go for it, set goals and go for it.
And joined by Marty Mueller now in Grand Forks. And Marty, I love this story. We get scared a lot of times about the outcome of things. And like Heidi said, just take a chance, do it for yourself, and see what happens. I thought that was great. The question for her now is she still competing? Is she still running?
Yeah, Tom, it sounds like she is going to continue running. I imagine it would be tough to give something like that up after doing it for so long. But the competition side of things, it sounds like she's going to at least put a hold on that for the time being.
All right, thanks a lot. Marty Mueller in Grand Forks. Up next, a young swimmer from Mitchell, South Dakota, who is now pooling her talents with the best in the world.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
When you think of Mitchell, South Dakota, a couple things come to mind. Maybe the Corn Palace, pheasant hunting, the sport of basketball. But there is a young athlete there right now who is about to make waves in another sport. Here is Jason Andera with her story.
Every accomplishment starts with a dream.
I'm going to swim in this pool someday. I'm going to swim with these big names someday.
You want your kids to dream, but you want them to be able to achieve.
You kind of smile and you give them, that confidence, and then you kind of look away and think, oh boy, we got a long ways to go.
But to get to that big dream, Tevyn Waddell takes small steps. She writes those goals down and posts them on her wall or writes them on her mirror. Once the goal gets written down, it's a safe bet it's going to get checked off.
Being determined, goal-oriented, of course, being tall and having big feet and things like that are good, but, I think swimming, the mental aspect of swimming, it kind of sets it apart from other sports.
It's not really exciting to get up at 5:30 and head to the pool in the morning. And, she has her alarm set and she's usually out the door before I even go and check on, to make sure she's up. So there's definitely the commitment level has been there for it.
She's extremely competitive. You play a card game with her, you play Monopoly with her, checkers with her, and she hates to lose.
Tevyn tried several sports, but toward the end of middle school, she realized swimming would be her main focus.
Going into 7th grade, I broke my hand playing softball. And so I couldn't swim. I could kick with a kickboard, and I had to wrap my cast in a plastic bag and duct tape every day. So I would do that. And then that next season, when I finally got back to swimming, somehow, for some reason, all that kicking paid off, and I actually swam really well. And I was state champion. I hadn't been state champion ever before, except once when I was 9 in the 50 backstroke. And then the next summer I won 6 events at state.
Drive and talent is a combination that few other athletes are able to channel.
Tevyn is kind of just like any normal 17-year-old girl, but in the pool and here, she's a great leader. She is very dedicated to the sport. I think the ones that persevere and stick with it and ultimately see a higher success are the ones that have the heart and the guts to kind of push through and keep the hard work up, and she has both. She has heart and she has talent.
Swimming, it's a hard sport. Like, all my friends even tell me, like, I could never do what you do. And like, I would be like, yeah, like, you couldn't do what I do. Like, it takes a lot of years. Swimming is a sport that you can't just like jump into. You really have to like start from the bottom and like work your way up. Like, you have to learn all the strokes, all the technique of it, like make sure you don't DQ. Like, it's a hard sport.
Another thing that sets Tevyn apart is how she does under pressure. She steps up even when she's going against some of the best in the world.
A couple of years ago at the Grand Prix up in Minneapolis, where she was swimming with the Missy Franklins and some of those bigger names that were there, and she qualified kind of out of nowhere. She qualified for the C final, and I think she was only a freshman, or it might have been her sophomore year. I don't remember for sure which one it was. That's when she started realizing a little bit that, you know, I can swim with some of these. I'm younger, but I can swim with them.
She is not afraid to get up and race the girls that are better than her or are supposed to beat her. She goes to meets like that and really steps up and rises to the level that is there.
You might be wondering, just how good is Tevyn? She's ranked in the top 50 in the nation right now and has qualified for 3 events at the Olympic trials this summer. She got top 8 at the Summer Juniors last summer. She has people talking about her across the country.
Like, I remember when I was going to like my first juniors, and I was like, wow, like I know, like I knew all the big names. Like, oh, that's so and so. Like, she's the best butterfly in the country. But like, it's weird to think that people could be looking at me and being like, oh, that's Tevyn Waddell. Like, that's really weird to think about.
Though her star keeps rising, Tevyn stays humble. She knows that giving back to her sport is important.
I remember one little girl, she was asked what she wanted to be when she got older. And her answer was, I want to be like Tevyn. And I just remember hearing that. And I really try and be the best person I can, just because I know that I have these little kids watching me.
The couple things I think that people don't really realize is how humble she really is. You know, we've even this year, she's swam at some meets where she swam in the morning, and she has stayed and helped our coach the younger kids, the 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, to give back. And that's the piece to me that's a huge piece for her, is just being humble and being able to give back.
Her ability to rise up to tough competition and set and meet goals makes you wonder what big things she's capable of. She's set to compete at the Olympic trials this July, and then she's off to the University of Minnesota to swim for the Golden Gophers. But she still has one accomplishment unchecked on her goal wall.
My focus mainly for the Olympics is for 2020, when I am like just finishing college and just getting off like probably hopefully an amazing NCAAs in March, and then I'll go right into the trials, and that one I'll have definitely a better chance at than this one, just because I'll be more experienced and a lot faster, hopefully.
And joined by Jason Andera, and she is a wonderful swimmer and is going to get better. This is very interesting. The Mitchell Aquatic Club. No knock on the club. It's great to have them in Mitchell, but the pool that she trains in is different. It's above ground. This makes things difficult in training for her, doesn't it?
It's above ground. It's only 4 foot at its deepest. It is impossible to practice your starts in such a pool. So she can only practice her starts in the summer. The rest of the year, she just does the rest of her work, and just imagine how much better she's going to get when she gets to the University of Minnesota and is able to practice her starts year-round.
All right, going to be fun to watch. Thanks a lot. Jason Andera. When we come back, rugby is back in the Olympics for the first time since 1924, and this young man from Sioux Falls would love to represent his sport and his country. His story next.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. Gannon Moore was an outstanding high school football player in Sioux Falls and then in college at Southwest Minnesota State University. And when his football days were over, he found and fell in love with the rough and rowdy sport of rugby. And his passion for that sport just might get him to the Olympic Games. Here's Alex Heinert with the story.
As the saying goes, rugby is a hooligan's game played by gentlemen. It's equal parts speed, skill, strength, and endurance, with a little blood thrown in for good measure. It's the world's second most popular sport, and it's catching on here in the US. As of 2014, 1.4 million Americans were playing rugby, second only to England's 2 million in terms of participation around the globe. With a U.S. professional league debuting this spring and more exposure set to come this summer at the Rio Olympics, rugby looks poised for great things. And that's good news for Gannon Moore. The 25-year-old Sioux Falls native has become a rising star in rugby circles in the Midwest, with a passion for the game that dates back to his teenage years.
I've been playing since I was a freshman in high school, which is really lucky because usually, it's not even available to you until maybe you get into college, and then usually it's just kind of like a beer fest.
A gifted athlete, especially in football, Gannon began playing rugby as a means to improve at his main sport in the off-season.
You're a freshman and you're like, oh, I gotta, it's spring, I'm a football player, gotta go out for track, even though I'm not a track athlete. And my brother goes, come out for rugby, it's gonna make you a better football player.
As advertised, the lessons Gannon learned on the rugby pitch translated to success on the football fields. By his senior year in 2008, Moore would help lead Sioux Falls Lincoln to the school's first state football championship in decades, while earning all-state honors at running back. Rugby was still in the picture, but at the time, pursuing it past high school wasn't an option.
I'd always loved the sport, but when the time came to decide rugby or football when I was younger, there was nothing. Rugby wasn't going to be able to help me get through school. Like, no way.
Football would do what rugby couldn't, provide the means for Gannon to continue his education. After garnering interest from a number of FBS and FCS programs, he ultimately chose Division II Southwest Minnesota State. After a successful 4-year career that saw him earn all conference honors as a senior, he impressed pro scouts at the NFL Regional Combine in Chicago, but a contract offer never materialized. His agent wanted to keep pushing ahead with football, but Gannon knew his time on the gridiron was over.
Do we want to do arena football? He starts moving on to the stuff. So I'm like, no, dude. All I wanted to do is if it was the NFL or move on.
Gannon returned to Sioux Falls and started working a normal job, but he continued training and he resumed playing the sport he had loved growing up.
During the summer, the Sioux Falls rugby program, like the men's team, would get together and play sevens. And I was going to that.
Not surprisingly, Moore stood out and was soon approached during a training session by a former member of the Kansas City Blues, one of the top teams in the D1 League of USA Rugby.
He said, hey, do you want to play with the Blues collegiate side out in Denver this weekend? And I said, sure. And then I went there and we beat Air Force in the collegiate final. The Blues did, and then they asked me to come down to Kansas City, and that's where I've been the last couple of years.
Just like that, Moore moved to KC in 2013, and he's been making headlines for the Blues ever since. He's been called a revelation, a player that runs with speed, power, and vision, and he's helped lead the club to league titles in both 7s and 15s, two versions of rugby named after how many players each team fields at a time. 15s is the more traditional model.
From the countries, where rugby is bigger, rugby is 15s. It's, what others would argue and say is the ultimate team sport.
7s is a more high-octane game. With fewer tacklers and more open space to run into, it's been dubbed a more TV-friendly version, and it's set to be played at this summer's Rio Olympics.
The 7s is super appealing because of the Olympics. It's fast-paced, it's high-scoring, it's really explosive.
Moore expected his international future to be in 7s, having been tabbed by some as a lock to make it onto this year's U.S. Olympic 7s team. But even after impressing at Team USA's Olympic camp this past year, Moore didn't get the response he had hoped for.
They do think I'm an international player. From a coaching standpoint, they think that I'm a 15s guy, which I take as a compliment. I thought getting back into rugby when I did would be enough time to do that, because any athlete's dream, I think, would be to represent your country in the Olympics. I was, bummed at first, but if they don't think you're the guy for the job, then the sun comes up tomorrow.
With his Olympic dream on hold, Moore's international hopes now rest in finding a place in a USA 15s team that's rebuilding after a group stage exit in this past fall's Rugby World Cup. But after earning a roster spot this spring in the all-new Pro Rugby League, the top division of the sport in the country, Gannon's chances of being capped at the international level have only improved.
I know I will, reach my goal with rugby. I want to wear the American jersey for USA.
Gannon's Team USA opportunity will hinge on a number of factors: how he performs in the coming year, what the national team coaches think of him, and if he can stay injury-free. But even if his shot to play at the Olympics or the World Cup never comes to pass, it's obvious that it's not sporting glory that drives Gannon. It's something more.
The competitive side of me is trying to find the highest level of competition. I want to play against the best. Whether I win or lose, I want to be able to play somebody and be able to recognize the other player across me and say, that guy's good, and I want to play that guy again. I haven't found that person yet, and that's what I'm looking for.
All right, no Olympic Games for him right now, maybe in the future, who knows, but there's still some international competition for him to be involved in, right?
Yeah, he's got a great shot to be a part of the 15s World Cup team that's coming up in 2019. He right now, by the way, has just joined the new Pro Rugby League. It's the first domestic pro league in rugby in the U.S. history. He's playing for a team in Denver. It's cutting-edge stuff. They open up in the middle of April, so exciting stuff for him.
Nice. Thanks a lot. Alex Heinert. Well, thanks for watching. You can go to YouTube to find these stories and all of the archives from Midco Sports Magazine.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.